Welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined, as always, by the relentless duo of Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke, trying to pick you winners midweek, weekend. We're recording this Thursday lunchtime. Mark's best bet still to come on Wolves versus Manchester United. So, listen, if you're listening to this post Thursday night, you'll know how that goes. But we'll do our best to cover the weekend games as best we can. The 4 games we're going to cover: Everton, Spurs, Manchester United, West Ham, Arsenal versus Liverpool, Brentford, City. We're going to have our EFL European section, long shots and best bets. And we're going to just get straight into it. Before we start, though, if you are watching on YouTube, as always, all we ask, hit that like button. Takes 2 seconds. Makes a massive difference to getting our content out to a wider audience. If you're listening on the podcast, hit that 5-star review wherever you're listening on your podcast platform. And the last thing to say is, as always, for the best prices on Premier League and football throughout the EFL and Europe as well, check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. And a lot of those prices we'll get into now. And we'll start with Everton versus Spurs. Everton 3.0 on the match odds, with Spurs 2.44. The draw is available at 11-4 or 3.75. Both teams to score yes. Mark loves this when I do this every time. 157 is both teams to score yes. No is 254. The Asian handicap line sees Everton get a quarter of a goal head start. And the total for this game is 2.5, but 167 is the over. So, Mark, take it away. We were speaking just a little bit on the Tottenham game, and is it safe to say that was the classic Tottenham Hotspur game under Ange Postecoglou this season?
Yeah, probably pretty chaotic, wasn't it? Great entertainment for the neutrals. They were pretty slow starters, really. They looked half asleep in that first half, and we said off air the doggy was culpable for a couple of really poor errors, and Brentford seized the initiative. Really, their game plan looked to be just to contain and counter attack, and Spurs would play into their traps, really. And I thought Tottenham played some nice stuff in the first half without really threatening. Once they got into the final third, the final ball or the finish kind of let them down quite significantly, whereas Brentford were reasonably clinical. They had other opportunities on the counter-attack. But we were speaking before we came on just about the sort of nonsense in that first half with players winding other players up. And I'm all for it, but I think it probably worked against Brentford in that first half, because Postecoglou gets his team in at half-time, just tweaks a few things, and obviously winds them up in that first half, tells them they've not been at it really, and sort of fueled by the frustrations of that first half and Brentford's gamesmanship, and Spurs came out firing. And I think for about 20 minutes or so, Spurs played some absolutely wonderful football in forward areas, some really nice link-up play, and they've got players in form in forward areas. I thought Timo Werner contributed brilliantly, starting to look confident now from the left-hand side. Richarlison has led the line wonderfully well, especially we're not even talking about Son not being around, because Richarlison's done a great job with and without the ball, really. And I think Spurs will be better for it, because Senegal have been eliminated from AFCON, which means Pap Sarr is now back too. So they're not far off their best 11, really. And they've got players in reserve too, which is quite handy. Able to bring on Brennan Johnson, for example, a player of impact who maybe hasn't played to his full ability so far this season, but he's still a player more than capable of unlocking a defence and causing problems. So a lot to like about Spurs. But for Everton, they are in massive danger now. There's not been a huge amount wrong with the majority of their performances this season. With the 10-point deficit, add it on, they're in mid-table. And a couple of remarkable stats I kind of unearthed doing my prep for this game earlier in the week was Everton have actually won the expected goals battle in 15 of 22 league games this season. Only the top 3 have won the XG battle more often than Everton, which is really crazy. Results haven't obviously matched up massively, and I think in forward areas they've been massively underachieving, nowhere near as proficient as those underlying metrics suggest they could or should have been. But defensively, they've been relatively solid. No Premier League side has kept more clean sheets than Everton. Everton, Arsenal, Liverpool all have 8 clean sheets to their name. And if you look at the XG against figure, it's 4th best in the division if you exclude penalties. Again, really impressive. So there's a lot to like about Everton, but more recently, I think once the charges came in, we saw a bit of a backlash. We saw Everton really raise their game, really go to battle for Sean Dyche. But the mood has dampened a little bit more recently, and I know there's been more charges levelled their way, and perhaps there's another points penalty to come. But they're winless now since mid-December in the Premier League, 5 games, scoring just twice in those 5 fixtures. I thought they battled reasonably well against City for the most part before City's class held in the last third of that fixture. But interestingly too, they did play Tottenham not long ago. They lost that match 2-1 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but they played really well in that match. And it kind of is in keeping with their season so far, kind of playing pretty well, but without getting their full rewards for it. And it can only be put down to their lack of a clinical edge in the final third. Because if you look at those XG numbers, they're undershooting their XG by a huge amount, more so than anyone else in the league. But that is a concern, especially when you come up against a side like Spurs who have the firepower and the ability to score freely. And that would be my issue coming into this game. If I wanted to be pro Everton, their price has moved in the last 24 hours, now into 3.0. And if you look at their Goodison Park record, 3 wins and 11, 6 defeats. They've also lost 9 of 15 against the top 12, which suggests that they do tend to fall short when they kind of step up in class in this league. And so it all kind of lends itself really for me to back Spurs here at about 1.8, 1.83 off a 0-ball start. The draw no bet. Spurs are unbeaten against the bottom 12. They've won 5 and drawn once against the bottom 9. The fact that they scored at least twice in 9 of their 11 away days so far has to be considered. Everton just can't match that kind of firepower, or at least they try to, but they just don't have those same individuals capable of scoring freely like Spurs do. And I do think if Tottenham score in this game, which they undoubtedly do and have done in 30-odd games now in the Premier League on the spin, I think they're going to be difficult to beat. So yeah, Tottenham have their flaws. Absolutely. They have their vulnerabilities. They can be quite fragile. They can be caught out on a few occasions, as Brentford proved in midweek. But I just think when you're scoring that many goals that freely, it's very difficult to kind of back a side who are undershooting their XG to such an extent as Everton. So I'll side with Tottenham +0 on the Asian handicap.
Okay, 183 there. Adrian, Spurs, someone like Richarlison, for example, he's stepped up big time the last few weeks. And that's just a player I didn't see working at Spurs after those first 12, 18 months.
No, he had a rotten start, didn't he? But no, 7 goals in his last 7 Premier League games, looking decent, and he'll be really fired up, won't he, to score in his return to Goodison Park. So yeah, he's someone to watch. Obviously, with Maddison supplying the ammunition now as well, he should, in theory, get more chances. Not a lot to add really to what Mark said. I also looked at Spurs draw no bet as a possible selection. Just went a little bit bolder and went with Tottenham on the nose, basically because of their firepower and the fact that I would expect them, even though Everton have been quite tight at the back, lots of those clean sheets that Mark was talking about. Spurs look like scoring 2, 3 or 4 goals in most games, don't they? And if they do score 2 or 3, I just don't see them losing the game. Everton haven't scored in their last 3 games. The strikers are all a little bit out of form. Of course, they lost their last home game against Luton in the FA Cup as well. They went strong in that game. The team was not a bad starting 11 at all. And Luton, this is Luton, scored twice and also missed some really good opportunities to get more goals. So I can see Spurs going there and scoring 2 or 3 and winning the game. So yeah, not much more to add. Spurs have scored the second most amount of goals away from home in the Premier League since the start of last season. 57 goals in total. So yeah, this is a team that will go there to win the game. And because they're better than Everton, they're worthy favourites to win it. It has been trimmed in, actually. Since I made the pick, I think this morning, it was 2.52. Then you just read out 2.44. So there's obviously a fair bit of cash coming for Spurs.
Yeah, bit of money coming for Spurs. Interesting to see where that market finishes up. But Adrian locking in Spurs at 2.44. We'll lock that in as the podcast bet, but Mark playing it safe with the draw no bet angle at around 1.8 currently. We'll move on to Super Sunday here. Sunday, 2 o'clock kickoff. Manchester United versus West Ham United. Again, just to reiterate, we're recording this before Thursday night's game away to Wolves. United 182 favourites against West Ham, who are 4.4, who play Bournemouth, incidentally, on Thursday night as well. Draw is 4.2. Both teams to score, yes. Heavily favoured at 1.66. The Asian handicap line, West Ham are getting a 3/4 goal head start at around 186. The goal line, 2.5, 166. The over. Adrian, right back to you here. Look, it's a game here which will be dependent a lot on Thursday night's results, but I don't see the prices moving too much, basically. But your thoughts on this game here?
My thoughts are immediately on those prices that you just had up on the screen right at the end there. it's quite a nice chunky price on under 2.5 goals. 2.4 it was when I looked earlier on today, and that is the pick that really appeals to me, because even though West Ham have been involved in a lot more high scoring games this season, but both teams of scorers landed loads of times in their fixtures, I still think that in this type of game, David Moyes will always be relatively pragmatic and look to keep things tight. And Manchester United aren't exactly brimming with confidence when it comes to scoring goals. We don't know what's going to happen at Molineux, but yeah, they've got issues with Rashford, and Højlund is getting there, but he's not exactly prolific, and no one is really for Manchester United. Under 2.5 has landed in 6 of 10 matches at Old Trafford this season, which is an important statistic, because I don't think you could say that about many stadiums in the Premier League this term. It's been goals galore, but not so much at the Theatre of Dreams. So that's my thinking. I think that West Ham, with Moyes breaking the curse, because he just couldn't win at any of the big six, could he? But in recent weeks, he's won at Arsenal 2-0. Masterclass of a defensive performance. Yes, they rode their luck, but yeah, they saw that out with relative ease. They won at Tottenham as well, didn't they? So they'll take a lot of heart from that, and I think that they will believe that they can go to Old Trafford and do pretty well. That they have been competitive in the not too distant past. West Ham away to Manchester United. Think about their recent form as well. West Ham, they've definitely tightened up at the back. Obviously, there was the 2-2 draw at Sheffield United. That was a little bit crazy. Bit of an off day, I would suggest, for them. But prior to that, they'd had clean sheets against Brighton, against Wolves, against Manchester United, and in that game against Arsenal. So if they can get clean sheets against those teams, I mean, Brighton, Wolves and Arsenal almost always score. So, if they can keep clean sheets in those matches, they can keep a clean sheet at Manchester United here. Kudus is back, of course. So, yeah, I did look at West Ham on a handicap. That was tempting. But just to play it safe, in case Manchester United sort of grind out a narrow win, I'm going to go under 2.5 goals, primarily because I think it offers good value at the price.
Okay, 2.4, as Adrian alluded to there. Mark, for you, you're going to be anti-Manchester United against Wolves. Taking this game, obviously not knowing that result, you're going to go for similar play, but with the away side this time?
Yeah, I obviously put the boot in quite hard on United on our last podcast, so I might be made to look pretty silly.
Well, the funny thing is, Mark, people listening to this, the majority already know the Wolves versus Manchester United result, which I find quite hilarious. But off you go, man.
Yeah, I'm not going to be quite as harsh. I've already done that on United, but I can't back them at these kind of prices against a West Ham side who are very capable. We know that United have done the bulk of their best work against the lesser lights of the Premier League. Well, West Ham are up there in the top 6 right now. United have failed to win 5 of their 11 home league games so far this season. And if you look at the 6 wins they have achieved, I don't think any of them have been completely convincing at all, really. Defensively too, just 2 clean sheets at Old Trafford. 6 of their visitors have scored at least twice in those 11 games, which is really, really concerning. And I've got them around 12th on expected points, similar for XG process. So pretty middling, really. They've not really been unlucky or unfortunate. They've just not been very good for the most part. And I think West Ham will be a tough nut to crack. And if you look at some of those matches United have played against similar stylish sides, I'm not going to say they're all the same, kind of offer the same approach, but they obviously got absolutely hounded by Bournemouth. But Palace, Luton, Forest, Brentford, all arguably deserve more, or got what they had deserved really against United. They're all very much in the game at Old Trafford. And I think West Ham will follow a very similar blueprint. We know that they will set up to contain and counter-attack. They do tend to be quite pragmatic, and they do have some absolute weapons from set pieces. Ward-Prowse, the obvious candidate there, but the land of the giants really is in defensive areas. So when they do get corners or free kicks in wide areas, they can fill the box with some big boys. And they have only lost 6 games this season. They have had a couple of away days where they've not been at it at all, but for the most part, they have been compact, they've been competitive, and they offer a real threat in the final third. And crucially, too, team news is very positive for them. We don't know if anyone's picked up anything major against Bournemouth on Thursday night, but it looks like they'll have Bowen back fit and available, as he has been recently. Kudus as well. Antonio is on the way back. If not, he's available already. Aguerd is back from international duty. Alvarez is fit again. So really, out of their best 11, I think it's only Paqueta who could be missing this match, which is really, really encouraging, really. So I thought West Ham to avoid defeat with a half-goal start at 2-12 was really quite nice. That they are the data defiers this season. They're massively overachieving if you look at the numbers, but that's largely down to Moyes and his approach, really. Slow and steady, inviting pressure and territory. West Ham do concede a lot of shots, but they make the most of their opportunities when they turn over possession. They won't fear Manchester United, and I think stylistically they could frustrate. So, yeah, I think 2.12 on West Ham to avoid defeat is fair enough.
Yeah, and look, if West Ham win on Thursday night, they go within 5 points of the likes of Spurs, Villa, so they're having a fantastic season, as Mark alluded to there. Given the bigger price, so I do like that under 2.5 goals angle for Adrian Clarke. We'll lock that in as the podcast selection, but Mark's going with West Ham plus half a goal at Old Trafford, 2.12. Again, check out the market after Thursday night. We'll go to game of the weekend, potentially could decide the title race, or at least who finishes runner-up to Manchester City. We'll take a look at the betting. Arsenal 238 favourites against a Liverpool team in flying form at 3.15. The draw is available at 3.8. Both teams will score. Another low price, 161 for yes. The Asian handicap line sees Liverpool get plus a quarter goal, head start at 1.9. The goal line here, 2.5. Overs is 1.7. Mark, yeah, look, I'll give you props again. We asked you a few weeks ago. Both teams were similarly priced for the title. Who's the better team, better setup? You said Liverpool had that improvement. I sort of half took it on board, but let's be honest, I didn't really, and it just feels like they've improved. So you've called it right there. Are they at the top of the mountain here now? They were out without Salah and Trent and played unbelievably against Chelsea. They'd be going into the Emirates here as confident as they've been all season, I would say.
Yeah, they should be. I just wonder whether there'll be a little bit element of the fear factor of, if we don't necessarily win this game, but if we lose this game, we could be in all sorts of bother. It opens up Arsenal, gives Man City a massive leg up too, because you've already done the warm up there for us. It's enormous, this match, really, really enormous match for both teams, and I don't think it's an easy betting heat either. And the market's been jumping all over the place in the last 24 hours. I tend to do my prep on a Wednesday, really ahead of the Thursday show. When I was doing my prep, Arsenal were 2.2 favourites. They're now 2.38, and that's a direct reaction to what Liverpool did last night against Chelsea. As you say, they absolutely mullered them from the first whistle, really. Very impressive performance. But what I thought was quite interesting is before that game, Arsenal were 2.2. And that was suggesting the market made them very, very, very slightly the better team of the two. That's largely down to their XG process, which is neck and neck really with Manchester City in terms of expected points, XG this season. And if the market had rated these two teams equal, Arsenal would have been 225, 230. Well, now they're 238. So now the market's decided Liverpool are actually very, very, very slightly the better team. But I think that just kind of goes to show where I'm at coming into this match too, because I'm finding it very difficult to split the two teams. And, we've rightly praised and criticised Arsenal, Man City, and even Liverpool at times this season. But those three teams are very much a cut above the rest. And I think it's quite telling that the matches between the three teams have been quite tight. This season, Liverpool held City at the Etihad 1-1. They were outplayed for probably an hour of that game, but still managed to scratch that point. There was a 1-1 draw between these two teams at Anfield, where Arsenal started brilliantly, and then Liverpool were the better team for the last hour. And Arsenal beat City 1-0 at the Emirates, and they were definitely the better team that day. So, as much as I want this game to explode into something really special, quite exciting and entertaining, I just wonder whether the sort of the old tradition of matches between the big six teams playing out tight matches is back in vogue. It might not be. I'm hoping it's not. But, defeat for either of these two teams could be disaster, especially Arsenal. So, Arsenal themselves, we've talked about it previously. They're not the same swashbuckling side from last season. Arteta has tried to firm them up, solidify them, make them much more robust for a title challenge until May. They've bounced back from a difficult spell in December with some impressive performances, having got a decent rest. And then you got Liverpool, who have just lost just once all season. That's when they had 9 men and some controversial decisions going against them. So, it's a game I'm really looking forward to. But I think it's incredibly difficult to find a really strong angle in this match from the traditional markets, just because, as we know, the Premier League is the most efficient betting market in the world sport, probably outside of the US sports. And you're not going to get standout errors or gifts when Arsenal play Liverpool in the blockbuster match of the season. So I thought I'd have a little swing at something a bit bigger and be able to justify it too. So I thought, kind of feeding into what I've just spoken about, I thought the draw was an interesting option here. It's the biggest price of the 3.8. And alongside that, I will tie in both teams to score. So BTTS and the draw, you're effectively backing the 1-1, the 2-2, the 3-3, or even the 4-4. Hoping it's not going to be a 0-0. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice boost. It goes from 3.8 to 4.7 now. And yeah, I think it's got a realistic chance. Obviously, 13 of the last 17 meetings between these two in the Premier League have seen both teams score. 5 of those 17 games ended all square. I know it's tiny samples. I know we're going back through the head-to-head records, which I don't really like. But the 4.5 to 4.7 suggests we've got just a 22% chance of that selection winning, which feels like it's undervaluing the draw here. So yeah, I think there's an opportunity here. If you did want to take the draw and under 2.5 goals, it comes in at 8.0. You're back in the 0-0 and the 1-1, which is probably slightly more in keeping with the previous results between the 3 teams at the top this season. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if it was a draw and it wasn't at least a 1-1. So yeah, I mean, I haven't got a strong view on this game. I'm just going to try and enjoy it. But if you want a bigger price, I thought that 4.7 BTTS in the draw was appealing.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting price, interesting angle there too, Mark. And Mark says, Adrian, he wants to sit back and enjoy this game. I know you'll be working on the game. Well, can you sit back and enjoy this game? I doubt it.
Do you know what I do? I really do. I feel very lucky to be at all the games, working on them, and yeah, I do enjoy them. I get a little bit agitated if things start to get a bit tense, and missed chances do frustrate you, but I just think this is my favorite. This is my favorite fixture of all. I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for Liverpool. I know a lot of people might scoff at that and say, "Why?" But I don't know. Ever since I went there years ago. Went to that Liverpool Chelsea game, and the year they won the Champions League, the famous ghost goal game, where it was just an incredible atmosphere. I'd never seen anything like it, and since then I've enjoyed watching Liverpool. I really have down the years, and especially under Brendan Rodgers and now Jurgen Klopp. They are often a joy to watch. So for me, this fixture is fantastic. Liverpool normally boss it at Anfield, but Arsenal have won a lot of games against them at Emirates. But one thing that normally happens is that they're attack minded. They're both teams are bold and they go for goals, and we normally see some thrilling matches. Mark almost got me to change my pick there because it makes sense in terms of keeping things tighter. And what we might see here is Arsenal adopt a similarly cautious approach like they did against City, where they went for control, but very measured control, where they sort of gradually upped the tempo the longer that game went on before striking late to beat City. And that might be the way that they go at Liverpool. I sense... My inkling is that Mikel Arteta will go for it in the first 20 minutes. Arsenal had them on the ropes big time in the cup game. Arsenal probably should have scored 3 or 4 goals by half-time in that 2-0 defeat. Very wasteful. And history over the course of this season says, and a bit of last season, says that Liverpool can be caught cold at the start of games. They've had to come from behind so often, haven't they? Conceding the first goal on a regular basis. No one's earned more points from losing positions than Liverpool this season. So I think Arsenal will go for it early on, and then if they don't make the breakthrough, then I think they might sit tight and just try and make sure that Liverpool don't pick them off, because Arsenal don't want to be chasing this game. So yeah, I'm going to go with the traditional pattern of this game, which is goals. But I do take Mark's point on it. I think this could be the pattern of this season where it's a little bit more cautious. I do think both teams are likely to score. Arsenal always create bundles of chances at Emirates. I think they'll score this time around. Liverpool give you chances. We know that. Even Chelsea, who were abysmal last night, had chances. So yeah, I think Arsenal will score. But looking at Liverpool, and I worked on that game last night. Whew, what a good team they are. What a performance it was. The front guys are on fire. I can't see Arsenal keeping a clean sheet either. So both teams to score for me is a lock-in. You could go with the draw like Mark. You could go with either team, and that bumps it up to 4 points. Something. Who knows? I could easily make a case for Arsenal to win. I could make a case for Liverpool to win. Absolutely could make a case for a draw like Mark. But I'm just going to simplify it and say over 2.5 goals. So I'm going to go with 2-1 either way or more, because that has landed on a lot of occasions in this fixture. It's going to be fascinating. I kind of can't wait for it. It's going to be pretty electric, and Liverpool couldn't be going there in better form. It'd be fascinating to see what Klopp does with Conor Bradley, because Conor Bradley, 2 goals and an assist in that game against Chelsea, was the man of the match. He was absolutely outstanding. His defending was terrific. Didn't give him a sniff. I can't leave him out of that team if I'm Jurgen Klopp. Yeah, he's got Trent Alexander-Arnold back, and we know how good Trent Alexander-Arnold has been in this fixture in particular. So that's a tough call. I don't envy Klopp making that decision. Maybe he'll cop out and play Trent in midfield.
I was gonna suggest that it's not. You think it's not the game for that, but maybe it is. Who knows? It's fascinating debate there. And very quickly on Arsenal, Adrian, Smith Rowe came in, did pretty well, I thought. So probably starts ahead of Havertz, but it's a big game to throw Smith Rowe in 2 games in less than a week as well.
Yeah, I thought Smith Rowe was good. Yeah, I thought he maybe deserves another start, but if Havertz gets the nod, I wouldn't be upset about that. Havertz is, might offer more of a goal threat, given his height and his form earlier in the season. But yeah, also I thought played quite well against Forest. A lot of people were saying how boring it was, but that was because of Forest. Anti-football, didn't want the ball. It was just they killed the game, and it's hard to break those kind of teams down. But Arsenal did break them down, and they pounced on rare lapses in focus. And I actually thought the passing was quite sharp in the game, and that Arsenal, after Palace and Forest, come into this Liverpool game in decent nick themselves. So yeah, either team can win this. It could be a draw. It could be high scoring. It could be tight. I don't know what to expect. So maybe don't have a bet and just sit back and watch it.
I think the podcast bet would be no bet. You have the guys' opinions on Mark and Adrian, but yeah, it is a game. Joking aside, we always say this to savor, and Mark touched on the efficient markets. There ain't no efficient market more than the big Premier League games in particular. So we'll leave that. We'll go to Brentford versus Manchester City and look at another team that had to break down a low block, but they did it very successfully and very early. Manchester City, they now travel to Brentford, who are 7.8 to beat them. City 1.45. The draw is 5.2. You can get both teams to score at a backable price at around 184. The Asian handicap line sees Brentford get 1.25 goal head start at 188. The goal line for this is 2.5. So, Adrian, the quirk of the fixture list and Man City playing in the Club World Cup means Brentford actually plays City in a few weeks as well, which isn't ideal. They have a tough run of fixtures. So they'll try and look at this game as maybe some sort of opportunity to perhaps dig out a result, because they do overall relatively have a good record for against the top teams throughout the seasons.
Yeah, they beat City, didn't they, at the end of the season? It was a bit of a dead rubber, wasn't it, at the end of last season? But yeah, they've beaten them a couple of times. Do I think they'll beat them this time? No, I'm afraid I don't. Brentford this season aren't as robust. They're not as difficult to play against. They're nowhere near as good defensively. The numbers will tell you that. They're conceding way too many goals. And because they're conceding goals, they're not winning that many matches. They haven't kept a clean sheet in any of their last 11 Premier League matches. They've lost 8 of their last 10 games in the competition as well. And they've conceded at least 2 goals in 5 of those 10 games. So, does anyone out there think that City will be limited to 1 or less here? I think you'll be hard pushed to find that many people, given City's form since they came back from the Club World Cup. So I think City are deservedly overwhelming favourites. And rather than going unders, I think City and unders has been a staple on this show down the years. I'm going to flip it around and say City and over 2.5 goals, primarily because I just don't think the Bees are defending very well. Only Sheffield United and Burnley, by the way, have conceded more goals in open play than Brentford, which is an indication of how downhill they've gone in that regard. They've had a lot of injuries, I get that, but nevertheless, they're weaker. And look, anyone that's seen City lately knows that they're flying. Yeah, really, really good. 9 of City's last 11 matches have gone over 2.5 goals. You've got De Bruyne come back, who's just hit the ground running with assist after assist after assist, and a goal in there as well. You've got Haaland, who came off the bench. Will he start this game? Well, he scored. This is quite a good stat. Erling Haaland scored against 20 of the 21 sides he's faced in the Premier League. The one missing is Brentford. So put your money on a Haaland goal any time, maybe in this contest, because he's just born to break records, isn't he? So yeah, look, Brentford might be worth a goal here, obviously with Tony in good form, but I can't see them winning, and I can see City scoring 2, 3, maybe even 4 goals here because Thomas Frank's side aren't what they were without the ball, I'm afraid. So City and overs for me.
Okay, and it's City and unders for you, Mark. We always talk about when are City going to hit their hot patch for the rest of the season, just keep winning. Feels like they're already in it a little bit earlier than planned, which isn't really ideal for the other 19 teams in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, City seem to have played themselves back into form since the Club World Cup. They've been able to get some rest in, get some sun on their backs, get some key players back from injury. They could have pretty much a full squad available for Monday night. And if you looked at the bench against Burnley, you could see they're well stocked again. There was a time there when we were comparing benches between, say, Liverpool and City, and saying City are basically fielding kids in their substitutes bench, whereas Liverpool have so much firepower in reserve. Well, that wasn't the case in midweek, and it won't be the case on Monday night either. So yeah, you have to assume another strong performance is incoming from City, and they do tend to produce the goods when they play bottom half teams, which Brentford are this season. Their Premier League status is under threat, really. I looked at City's record against the bottom half over the last 5 or so years. 46 wins from 55 trips away from home. 44 of those matches featured a maximum of 4 goals as well. So I'm taking a slightly different approach to Adrian. I'm going to take the traditional City to win under 4.5 goals. It's landed in 6 of their 7 away league wins, only failing at Newcastle. 9 of Brentford's 10 defeats before midweek match against Spurs featured fewer than 4.5 goals. And obviously, I think games against Spurs kind of go out of kilter with what the Premier League is about. They're always chaotic and high scoring. And so, yeah, I think Brentford will take a very sort of pragmatic approach here, look to stay compact and whatnot. But yeah, I said before this Tottenham game, I was a little bit down on Brentford. They've had it quite tough recently with injuries and international duty, and results have really suffered, losing consistently and struggling for clean sheets, which is kind of understandable when you're missing basically all your key defensive men in certain areas or certain parts of the season, as well as your standout attackers. The picture is improving. Tony, of course, back. Depending on AFCON results on Friday, they could have Visser and Onyeka back in the squad potentially. We don't know. And Mbeumo, we know, is still injured. Reguilon's available again. There's hope that Hickey and Schade could be back as well. But they used to be this awkward underdog, and I thought they were always capable of bloodying a nose of a big boy, as they've proven a few times. But it just hasn't happened often enough this season to be confident about Brentford going toe-to-toe with City. They did hold Spurs on the opening day at the G-Tech, but that's the opening day, and there's a bit of randomness about that. So they were turned over by Arsenal and Aston Villa here more recently. And yes, they gave both teams a few headaches along the way, but ultimately ended up in defeat. And City is a step up in class more, and it's a full strength City side. So yeah, City to win under the 4.5 goals comes in at 183.
Okay, I think I'm going to lean towards City and over 2.5 goals. Just trying to think what was the most likely and the best case, obviously. And I'm going to lean towards Adrian. I could just see City conceding a late goal in a 2-1, 3-1 victory. But look, both games can be potentially covered in the same bets. Quick question on YouTube from Sean. Can I ask Mark, has he been to all the club grounds behind him? For those that never get the chance to watch the YouTube video, Mark has multiple scarves. We maybe go full screen for this answer, producer Ryan. And Mark will give us a brief left to right as quick as you can.
Yeah, I've been to all the grounds. It's my tradition really to pick up a scarf when I've been to a ground and seen a game. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to look behind, but I think it's Wolfsburg. Might be Toulon rugby. There's Betis. There's Basel. There's Hertha Berlin. Getafe, Brisbane Rugby League, Monaco, Dunfermline, Roma, Fiorentina, Dortmund. Yeah, plenty more. But yeah, I used to be a huge football tourist, and obviously now with a little one, it's a bit more tricky. But yeah, go to an away day in Europe and pick up a scarf for the collection. So that's my little thing.
And I'll ask the question for Adrian. Adrian, talk us through your background. I presume that's an Arsenal jersey. Your first Arsenal appearance, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I just got it printed. Just got it printed at the club shop. I just wish I played. But no, yeah, I had a handful of games back in the day for those younger viewers or listeners. Yeah, had a handful of games for the Arsenal. So yeah, pride of place in my office. Yeah, why not?
And they're called the Arsenal, not Arsenal. That's always a sign of someone that knows the football club. Adrian, 2 EFL selections for you in this section here. So take it away, please.
Yeah, I'm going to go with in the Championship first of all. I'm going to bet against West Bromwich Albion basically at home to Birmingham City. The odds are really stacked in West Brom's favour. You know, the bookies are saying that they're going to win this quite comfortably, and Birmingham are big outsiders, but I don't necessarily see it that way. I think that Tony Mowbray has come in there. There's a real good feel-good factor at St Andrews. It's not going to be called that for much longer, by the way. They've announced sort of plans for some kind of Manchester City-style campus, which is really interesting moving forwards in the city. But yeah, everyone's on board with Mowbray. They've signed Pritchard today from Sunderland. They've made a couple of other additions as well. They're heading in the right direction. They won last time out at Stoke. A couple of great goals to win that game. And they do have a really good recent record against West Bromwich Albion. They've won 4 in a row against the Baggies, including a 3-1 win earlier on this season. They won at the Hawthorns last year as well. And interestingly, Mowbray himself won at the Hawthorns last season with Sunderland as well. So a little bit of a sort of recent history bias in my thinking, I guess, with it. But I just think that they're more than capable here with a 1-goal handicap of seeing this bet land. So look, if West Brom win by a goal, we get our money back. That's no problem. But any other result, we're in the money. Apart from obviously West Brom winning by 2 or more goals, but that hasn't happened very often this season. You know, they're a good team, West Bromwich Albion, but they're not a side that score bundles of goals. They've actually scored 1 or less in 18 Championship matches this season, West Bromwich Albion, and you know they for this bet to lose, they have to score 2. So and 8 times at home they've scored 1 or less as well, which represents I think a 56% share. So more often than not, at the Hawthorns they score no goals or 1 goal, and you know that they need to, as I said, for this bet to lose, or at least 2. Providing Birmingham don't score, and Birmingham are in the goals at the moment. Their strength is going forward. Jay Stansfield's been terrific. You've got Dembele in there. You've got the new signing Pritchard, Miyoshi. Lots of quality going forward. So yeah, I give Birmingham in a derby game, which always seems to sort of tighten things up as well. I give them a shot here, especially with that new manager bounce. West Brom, by the way, have lost 3 of their last 6 as well, so form's a little bit patchy. So I was surprised to be able to get Birmingham on such a big handicap, which is why I'm taking it on.
Okay, Birmingham plus 1.0 on the Asian handicap line, 173. St Andrews at Knighthead Park is the name of St Andrews, so we'll try and quote that as best we can. There's been a bit of debate in Ireland. Super Value sponsored Park Equive. They're going to change it to Super Value Park. All the Irish listeners will be aware of this, but it's been a bit of a mess. But I think they've got there with some name in the end. But Adrian, I digress. Peterborough versus Wigan. Take it away. You've got a fancy here.
Yeah, look, Peterborough are great going forward. They're really good. I still fancy them for top 2. Love their forward line. The wingers in particular are excellent. But Wigan aren't a bad team. They've had a points deduction, but they've weathered that, and they're right up there in mid-table. This is numbers based, really. Wigan have scored in 12 of 14 away games. So almost always when they go on the road, they manage to find the back of the net. Peterborough have scored in every home game. So there you have it right away. There's a really good chance here, I think, of both teams scoring. Matches at London Road average 3.31 goals. That's the second highest in the division. Both teams' scorers landed in 10 of 14 away games for Wigan this season, a really high percentage. They've scored in their last 6 games as well. Just 2 away clean sheets for Wigan. For me, it points towards a game of goals where both teams score. Probably Peterborough come out on top in it because they're the stronger outfit, the more likely to go up this year. But I think that Wigan, given their record on the road, are worth the goal here. Peterborough, because they're such an attack-minded side, do offer up the odd chance here and there. So I think this would be a really good game. Both teams to score 1.79.
Okay, we'll lock that in. Birmingham plus 1.0 at the other selection for Adrian, and one EFL pick for Mark. It's Cheltenham draw no bet against Wycombe.
Yeah, so I'm sure people will remember how bad Cheltenham were at the start of the season. Adrian touched on it a couple of times. They started the campaign picking up just 1 point from their first 9 games. Then they brought in Daniel Clarke, who I think we all agreed was a bit of a coup, really. He arrived in late September. Things have improved immeasurably since he was appointed. And look, he did lose his first 2 games without scoring. It did mean that Cheltenham had failed to score in their opening 11 league games, which is almost 17 hours worth of football without added time included. So that set a new English Football League record. And they look doomed really from the off. But what Clarke has managed to achieve since is pretty remarkable, really. I mean, they're still 7 points from survival, but they're proving just such a difficult team to get the better of, really. And I think that's been exemplified recently in their 3 most recent matches, where they went to Derby last week, gave as good as they got, really probably ran the Rams really close, could easily have taken something from that game, lost it very narrowly. Similar happened against Bolton, gave them an almighty match away and fell short. But they also beat Portsmouth in the last game at Whaddon Road, which kind of goes to show they are capable of toppling the best teams in League One with their current side. So if you look at their results since Clarke arrived, they would be 14th. That includes the 2 defeats they suffered in his first 2 fixtures. So take those out of the equation. They've won 6, drawn 4, and lost 4 of their last 14. So being very impressive. So I really like them at this price against a Wycombe side who are falling quite badly, quite quickly too. Since October's international break, Wycombe have won just once in 17. They scored just 16 goals in that sample. And for the first time this season, really, or recently, their head coach, Matty Bloomfield, acknowledged they were in a relegation battle, really, in a spot of bother themselves. They're only 4 points above the drop zone. 3 away wins all season, none of which have arrived since October's international break either. So they're easily opposable. And yeah, Cheltenham is scoring goals now. They scored in 14 of the last 16. At home, they've won 4, drawn 3, and lost just once in the last 8 as well. And they just look a bit underrated here. They look like they're still being priced up off those sort of September, October results, really, whereas they have improved a lot since then. As I say, the home record under Clarke is very good. They're scoring, and if they do score here, I struggle to see how Wycombe can score 2 or 3 goals here to topple this bet. So yeah, Cheltenham evens draw no bet or +0 on the draw no bet or on the Asian handicap.
Okay, we will lock that in. Let's move to long shots again. The guys have a brilliant record going down below on screen. Adrian, we'll go to you on this one. It's a game we spoke about here. So I can see the scenario. Okay, you mentioned Arsenal getting off to the fast start, and you want to maybe make that pay in a long shot or a fun bet. We've already spoke about, we've locked in no bet officially on the podcast. So if you want a fun one to maybe sit back and support, this is quite juicy odds, I would say.
Yeah, very juicy odds. And I just think that this is a scenario that I could see playing out. It also ties in with Mark's selection, where he was tipping up the draw and both teams to score. But at a price of 13.0, you can get Arsenal to be leading at half-time and for the full-time result to be a draw. So this is a half-time, full-time bet. Arsenal draw. Arsenal are fast starters, and they will tear at Liverpool, and they will create chances. I'm pretty sure of that. They did in the last meeting just a few weeks ago in the FA Cup. Should have been 2 or 3 up early on in the game, and And that's been the pattern of matches when Liverpool have come to Emirates in recent times. So, yeah, providing Arsenal bring their shooting boots this time, I can see them taking the lead and maybe even taking a lead into the halftime interval. But I would be less confident of them seeing the job through, because Liverpool have got great powers of recovery. 19 points recovered from losing positions in the Premier League this season. That's more than any other team in the Premier League. And in the second half, wow! I mean, they are by far the best, strongest second half team in the division. They've won 16 of 22 second halves, which I think is incredible. And wait for this stat: away from home in the second half of matches this season, the goal difference is scored 15, conceded 4. That's away from home in the Premier League in the second half. They finished strong, and Arsenal saw how strong they finished with those 2 late goals to knock us out of the FA Cup. So, yeah, it's a long shot for a reason, and it's a big old price, but you can kind of see it playing out this way. So, yeah, Arsenal to lead at half-time, draw at full-time, 13.0.
Yeah, I remember Liverpool making the substitutions and Conor Bradley was coming on, and I was thinking they were waving the white flag, but little did we know how good Conor Bradley would become in such a short space of time, or he was already
looking forward to him playing for England, Dan, aren't you?
Oh, don't mention this now. He's capped by the North, and that's it. But they should look. The FAI should have been looking at that. I would say I'll leave that there. Our weekly Irish chat. Well, Lee Carsley back in the hunt, Mark, which is positive. Anyway, Stuttgart third in Bundesliga. Mark, kind of going under the radar a bit here, given Bayer Leverkusen's amazing start to the season. Yet you're going against them this week.
I am, yeah. They're away at Freiburg on Saturday, and it looks Stuttgart have been magnificent this season, far beyond their wildest dreams, really, to be involved in a Champions League hunt. They were very fortunate to survive, not just this season, but even last season and the season before, really. So to be where they are in the Bundesliga standings is astonishing. But they have been a little bit erratic since the winter break. Last weekend, they were absolutely outstanding against Leipzig, but that was at home, whereas they've been turned over on their recent trips to both Bochum and Gladbach, and they still will be without Guirassy for this game at Freiburg. He's still involved in international duty. Sure, Dennis Undav has led the line superbly in his absence too. But yeah, they just look a little bit short for a side who have lost 5 of 9 away days already this season. They're 2.3 to win this game, and Freiburg are traditionally quite handy at home in the Black Forest. They've only lost once at home this season, 5 wins from 9, and they scored twice or more in 6 of those fixtures too. So they look like quite lively underdogs in this game at 3.3, but we can boost that price to 5 to 1. 6.0 by including both teams to score. Stuttgart have scored in 16 of 19 overall, tend to play their parts in lively fixtures too. So you're expecting a few goals in this game, and I think Freiburg can have or can get the better of them. I'm just backing them really because they're a big price. And look, home teams have a 46% hit rate in the Bundesliga this season, which is very strong. And BTTS has landed in 61% of those fixtures too. So 3.24 goals per game. So I think it all kind of comes together. And I think Freiburg to win and BTTS at 5 to 1, 6.0 against Stuttgart on Saturday.
Okay, let's lock it in. Matchbook Insights or insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of all these bets from Thursday afternoon. Best bets time. Adrian, look, Chelsea, it's important to reiterate how terrible they've been this season. 10th place currently, could go 11 if Wolves win tonight. It's I know people want to be patient with Pochettino. I see some of the good stuff they're doing, but it hasn't been great, has it?
No, I think it's easy to oppose Chelsea this weekend. They're at home to Wolves, and yeah, I think that the odds are way too short on Chelsea in the game. You can get Wolves on a +1 handicap at 1.86, and that really, really appeals. Chelsea were dreadful at Anfield, defensively shocking. I mean, do you see that Shotiko? The way that, Badiashile and Thiago Silva defended that, it was absolutely appalling. And that's symptomatic, really, of what they produced in that game. The bottom line is Chelsea and Wolves are pretty much level this season on a points per game basis. There's a fraction in it, and by the time some people listen to this, if Wolves have got a good result against Manchester United, Wolves will have a better points per game average, and they'll actually leapfrog Chelsea in the table as well. So these are two even teams, yet the odds suggest that Chelsea are way better and more likely to win this match. And I'm just not sure that's the case. Wolves have got a good record against Chelsea in recent times, beat them recently at Molineux. Chelsea have won just one of the last 7 against Wolves as well. And much like my pick earlier in the EFL with Birmingham plus a goal, obviously you kind of need, well, for this bet to lose, Chelsea have got to win by 2. And it has happened twice in Chelsea home games this season, against Luton early on this season and against Sheffield United. So, it's not something they're used to doing. When they do win, it's narrow, and there's a lot of games at Stamford Bridge that they haven't won, of course. And Wolves are good value, aren't they? I mean, they score so many goals. They've scored in 18 of 21 matches, full stop. And this bet would lose in just one of Wolves' away games so far this season. That was when they produced a no-show at West Ham. Other than that, they've either picked up points or lost by just a solitary goal. And if that's the case, we'll get our money back here. So, yeah, I think this represents good value based on what I saw of Chelsea, that they're a team that, if they have improved, and let's face it, it wasn't hard to improve after that Frank Lampard team last season. If they have improved, and I think they have, it's not by as much as maybe I thought, or as much as everybody thought, because they look disjointed to me, and Wolves are well capable, I would suggest, of going to Stamford Bridge and being competitive, causing them problems, of scoring at least once, maybe twice, and giving them a heck of a game. So, for me, Wolves +1 at Stamford Bridge, 1.86. That feels like really, really good value.
Okay, we'll lock that in as the best bet, last bet, and best bet for Mark O'Haire this weekend. League 2 Tranmere versus Crewe, Mark, and you're expecting goals, and hopefully more goals to land the over 2.5.
Yes, please. We talked about Daryl Clarke at Cheltenham. Well, Nigel Adkins has had a similarly good impact with Tranmere in League 2. They were having a horrendous start to the campaign, and he took over on an interim basis and did such a good job. He was given it permanently in sort of October time, I think it was. They're now only 3 points off the top half, having won 8 of the last 13. They've scored in 11 of those games and scored twice or more on 9 occasions too. They are a front foot team. They don't concede too many, or don't keep too many clean sheets, but it's their record at Prenton Park that really stands out to me from a goals perspective. They scored in 13 of 14, just 3 clean sheets. Of those 14 games, 10 saw BTTS, 12 went over 2.5 goals. And I think Crewe will come here and try and match fire with fire, really, because that's just what Crewe do, really. They're more than happy to engage in entertaining shootouts, really. They've scored themselves in 26 of 29. And despite sitting 5th in League 2, they have only kept 6 clean sheets themselves. You look at their away days, 10 of 14 have seen both teams score. Half of those fixtures have featured 4 goals or more. So, yeah, just keeping it pretty simple, really, backing 2 goal-heavy, forward-thinking teams to go at it on Saturday in a high-scoring game. I think overs at 1.8 is more than good enough to be a best bet.
Okay. Well, my thanks to Mark and Adrian. As always, fun one there. We will be back next Thursday previewing the weekend's Premier League action. And then, if my dates are correct, we will be kicking off the Champions League return on Monday week. We'll be drumming it up as much as possible with Miguel Delaney. Join the guys every Monday from next Monday. That's Monday week coming up. But yeah, my thanks to Mark and Adrian. Matchbook Insights, insights.matchbook.com for a full recap. And if you are watching on the YouTube stream, do hit that like button. As always, get involved in the show either with our live streams or commenting after. And other than that, if you are having a bet on the Matchbook exchange, please do so responsibly. We will chat to you next week. Bye-bye.